Welcome to the Good Bad Mad podcast, a show that's here to share the ins and outs of creative careers, connecting the aspirational with the experienced, with your host, me, Meg Ellis. My guest this episode is Jessica Ellerby, an actress known for Pennyworth, Lovesick, Benidorm, and many more. I chat with her about what it takes to be an actress in today's world and the ups and downs it brings along the way. Hope you enjoy it. You are. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. It's lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for having me. Sorry, I was just grabbing some water. Did I leave you hanging forever?
No, you were fine. I was just...
You're like, is she there? Hello?
Don't worry. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
Keeping busy?
Yeah, kind of yes and no. Like, keeping busy, but also trying desperately not to... You know that thing of like making yourself busy just so that you'll kind of feel like you're filling the time. And I tried that with lockdown 1 as well, where I was like, don't like use the opportunity as well for rest.
Essentially, this podcast is a way for me, and by extension anyone who's out there listening and following us, to kind of get in the room with like people like yourself and just ask the basic questions that are kind of quite tricky to get the answers to nowadays.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I don't think there's loads of it around there, that sort of sense of mentorship.
That's it, exactly. And I mean, without kind of parents in the industry or even just family, friends and stuff, sometimes it can be quite lonely, you know? So
hugely, yeah, it's a very sort of solitude or can be world.
yeah.
Particularly because you're your business. So
yes, and it is all kind of about self-motivation and self-promotion and all these kind of cutthroat things that you don't necessarily want to do but you have to do, and it's all those things. So this is really why we kind of wanted to talk to someone like yourself who's a proper working actress. Let's put it that way. You started at Bristol Old Vic Theatre School, is that right?
Yeah, so that was my sort of, drama school training, 3 years. Before I went to Bristol, I went to a performing arts school for 2 years.
Oh, amazing. Which one was that?
It was called the Arts Educational School, Tring Park. They've since changed the name, and I don't know what it's called anymore, but it's not called that. It's still there. It's still in exactly the same place. But I went there, and mostly because I grew up abroad, and I kind of... had always wanted to perform, and I was very big fish small pond situation, and
right.
And I also came from a very like academic school, and I think not that there wasn't there was an incredible art and drama department, which I basically spent my whole life in while I was there.
You gravitate towards these things, don't you? If you're surrounded by everything else, you're like, hold on for dear life.
I think as well, like, I don't know, I remember my dad saying very early on, he was like, do something you love because you're a long time working. And that really stuck with me. I think I just, I think you gravitate towards the things that you enjoy, actually. Not to say that I didn't enjoy other subjects, but I definitely gravitated towards those others. Anyway, but there wasn't, there wasn't a massive theatre scene or sort of art scene where I grew up, in the Middle East, in the UAE.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, it was incredible, like incredible place to grow up. Very, very different to the place that it is now.
Yeah, like, no, I know. I mean, personally, I grew up in places like Indonesia and Pakistan and all those kind of weird places, so I completely get it.
Also expat brat. Excellent.
Yeah. Exactly.
So there wasn't a huge sort of art scene there, and I think my parents were really supportive of sort of whatever I wanted to do.
So I take it they weren't in the industry?
No, God no. My dad's an engineer, and my mum was a hairdresser by trade, and then obviously was full-time mum for a little bit, and then went back to sort of part-time hairdressing. So no one really in the industry. Well, I didn't know actually. There is a couple of family members, but I
Mm.
didn't know at that point. I thought it was, I
Yeah.
didn't know anybody. Anyway, and they were sort of like, well, yeah, of course, do what you want, but maybe go and see if it's really what you want to do. I think the worry was that I'd go to university, study something for 3 years, and then come out of it and think, oh, I didn't really want to do that, and then I'd sort of be not stuck with a stuck with a degree, because I think it's such a transferable skill actually. But I think it was more direction. So they were like, well, why don't you go check it out for a little bit and see if that is what you want to do, or maybe you do want to go down more of an academic route.
So they were thinking, we're going to let her have this little phase, get it out of her system, and then she'll be on track.
I think they knew. I think it was more a safety net, or just to be sure, really. So I went to this performing arts school, and the idea really was that you did your A-levels at the same time as you did a vocational course. And I actually picked musical theatre as the vocational course, mostly because, not because I particularly knew anything about musical theatre at the time, absolutely nothing. But it in terms of like the course syllabus, it looked like it was equally weighted between dance, drama, and singing.
Jack of all trades.
Like, I don't know, I want to perform, but I wasn't really sure what it was that I wanted to do. I actually really thought that I love sort of movement, and I've always loved to dance, so I thought that it was more in that vein. I very, very quickly found out that I was not good enough to be a professional dancer. There was a real sort of sink or swim moment. I remember being in a dance class just thinking, I don't know what I'm doing. And the teacher sort of leaning over as we were, it's just the beginning bit as well, where you sort of do this like warm up, and your like body is in various, different sorts of human pretzel shapes. And she just leant over and she was like, you'll never be a dancer if you can't do the splits. I just thought, and I was miles off the ground, not even anywhere close. And I was like, I think perhaps that's crushed that dream forever.
I had a similar one. I was in a ballet class when I was, I don't know, under 10. And she told me off for talking. And I was like, well, if I can't be sociable, I'm off. Ended foreseeable dance career.
Yeah. So yeah, I did that for 2 years, and I actually didn't end up doing a academic A-level at all. I sort of started doing, biology and English literature and drama, and kind of dropped to art and performance studies. Basically came out with sort of 2 diplomas in performance. So yeah, did that for 2 years, and then went on to Bristol Vic. And I'm very glad that I sort of had the 2 years, to make it slightly more concrete that I did want to do acting, that I've sort of actually realized that was my strength. I remember there was quite a hierarchy system at the school as well, where like it was like dance, musical theatre, and then like actors were like at the bottom of the, like if you were an actor, it wasn't good news for anybody. And so I remember being crushed one day when someone was like, you're a really great actor, and I was, you're like, but I was honestly like, but I want to dance, I want to be in the top dancer.
Nothing's changed really, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think actually being there, not only did it solidify that that's, acting was definitely what I wanted to do, when definitely where my strengths lay, but also I just wouldn't have known about drama schools. I didn't even know that it was an option. I thought you go to university. Like I didn't know that. I didn't even know drama school was a thing.
Yeah. Actually,
until much later, I auditioned for like musical theatre schools to start off with, and it just didn't feel right. And I didn't quite. It was like this sort of quiet intuition that was like, no, this is not right. And I remember I'd actually got a scholarship. I remember speaking to my dad, and I was like, it just doesn't feel right. And that's when he put me in contact with his cousin Hazel, who I didn't I didn't know anybody in the family was an actor, and so he put me in contact with his cousin, who was a professional actor. I think hoping that she would sort of persuade me to go to do this course in musical theatre, because it sort of made sense.
Scholarship,
the exact opposite. She was like, "Oh darling, you must follow your heart," and like proper loveyed me into but it was sound advice, because she was right. It wasn't right for me. Like, I was not meant for musical theatre at all. And applied for the drama school, sort of with the help of the drama department, and ended up at Bristol Vic, which was amazing.
Yeah, you think it did you good, prepared you for what was there?
I mean, I was a baby, I was like 17. Like, I look back on it, and I remember being having a no from Guildhall. So I didn't audition for many drama schools because it was quite late in the day. It was only 3, I think. LAMDA, Guildhall, Bristol, or Vic. And I remember Guildhall's feedback. They were like, "We thought you were great, but just think you're quite young and, could have some life experience." I remember being like, "How dare you?" So grown up, so experienced.
I know.
17, just thinking I was like an adult.
Yeah.
And I was just saying, "Oh my God, I was truly a child."
Yeah. But it's strange, isn't it? It's like, even though that's completely sound feedback and probably exactly what you needed is more life experience, you're still being funneled into these timelines and schools and application deadlines and all of that. You're just like, well, what do I do?
Yeah, well, exactly. And I remember them saying, go away and figure out if it's what you really want to do. I felt like saying, but I know, I'm telling you, I know it is. I think I have quite strong instincts, and was like, no, this is the one for me. So Bristol was great, and it definitely set me up for it set me up for some of what was to come.
Yeah.
I think drama schools are great. I also think you don't have to go to drama school.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go to university. I'm sort of a firm believer that you can't teach someone to act necessarily. I think you can give them the tools to use when things are challenging. And by challenging, I mean in terms of the role. If you're in work. Yeah. Less for when you're out of work, but challenging when you're in a role and maybe struggling to find something, or you can't quite get into it. There's methodology that they would teach. I think the voice work that they teach is amazing, and they're quite physical in their practice as well, which is always useful. So it was great. It was great. And I love Bristol. Very city. So really enjoyed being there, and made some amazing friends, and have some great memories from it. And I think really what drama school does is it gives you the showcase in London. It sort of puts you in front of.
See, this is what I was going to ask. So, a lot of actors starting out, just finishing their courses, university, whatever it is they've chosen to do, kind of tend to need the same things, or believe they need the same things, which is headshots, a show reel, a showcase, and the ultimate goal, which is an agent. Like, would you kind of agree that they need to tick those boxes? Do you have any kind of other things that you think this is what you should actually be focusing on when you're making that transition from school to work, really?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not the best person to give you an alternative, mostly because I very much kind of went down that like traditional drama school route, got an agent.
But it works. That's what I'm saying. You don't necessarily have to poo-poo it, but if it works, it works.
Well, it does work for some people. It also doesn't work for some people. One of my really good friends from drama school classically left without an agent. She's actually the person who's done the best since leaving a year. But she did eventually get an agent, and there are ways to get work without an agent. I don't know what they are.
Mm.
And I think if it was super easy, that we would be doing agents out of a job, and they do work their asses off for you. And they are sort of the middle man or woman, you know, between you and, depends what you want to do, I guess. If you want to do more screen, I think that's probably harder to crack into unless you're making your own work. I would definitely say that that's a way to get into things, but that's hard when you're inexperienced as well, and you perhaps don't know even where to start, or, you know, you maybe, you know, don't have, I think it's different if you have a training that covers stage management, or like production side of it as well, so that you understand sound and lighting, and camera and stuff like that. But very different if you've just done acting and you kind of come out of it, which I think most people who, not all, you know, if you went to university, that your course might have been slightly more diverse, but I think if you've left drama school, for example, or you've left school and you want to just do the acting bit, you don't have to have the, you know, the greatest agent. I know there's that sort of pool at the top that everyone's gunning for, and also, you know, you don't have to be with the same agent forever either. But also, you know, some people stay with their agent also for the entirety of their career, because I think what's really important is that you have a good working relationship with that human as much as anything else. You know, you want to get on with that person and kind of be on the same page. So, you know, just because you're not with United or Curtis Brown doesn't mean that you have to strive there. You know, obviously they're incredible agency, and
but they're not the be all and end all.
Not be all and end all, and also you can be with bigger agents and you know, that classic like Get Lost within that, where they have lots of other big clients that they're looking after, and you sort of fall by the wayside because you're maybe, you know, at the end of the day it's a business, and you might not be getting the work or might not be bringing in the money in the same way, so you're perhaps not their point of focus in the same way. So I've had friends who've moved to bigger agencies thinking this is it, like feeling like you're moving up a rung of a ladder. But I think the thing that I've learned about this job is that there ain't no ladder. Like someone said to me the other day, I'm trying to think who it is, they were like, it's not climbing up a ladder, it's snakes and ladders. And I was like, oh yes, because it is. Sometimes you're like at the top of the board and then you fall down a snake hole and you're back at square, or you feel like you're back at square one again. So I think that's really an important myth to dispel as well, that it's not like a normal job where there's a definitive like career trajectory where you know, well, I'm gonna do this, and then that's gonna move me up to this, and then this will happen afterwards. There's no sort of like promotion like there is in normal jobs. It kind of just,
it's a squiggly career path.
Very
I think of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So how were those kind of first steps leaving drama school? You signed a deal with an agent, and then did they kind of start just sending you out to roles? Was it as simple as that? Or did you kind of sit down and go, well, this is kind of the stuff I want to go for? Do you have that kind of conversation?
Yeah, no. I think I don't know about anyone else, but I think you sort of leave drama school so green and well, I was anyway, so young, so green, so like wide-eyed. Not only I felt really like that sort of, I can only equate it to that feeling when you're a kid and you're learning to ride a bike without your stabilizers, and whoever, you know, helps you learn to ride the bike, parents, older sibling who's like pushing you, you think they're holding on and you're pedaling away, and all of a sudden you look back and you're like, oh my god, I'm doing it on my own. That's sort of how I felt when I came to London to be an actor. I was a bit like, oh my god, look, I'm a real actor, everyone. And so I think I just was so chuffed that I was doing sort of like living the dream a bit. I felt, you know, there aren't felt very, very lucky to be doing what I love for a job. Like that was what I was going to do, and someone was going to pay me to do it. That just like blew my mind. So no, I think I was just chuffed I got an agent, and thrilled I left drama school. And also this, I'd never, like Bristol obviously, you know, is a city, and I'd grown up in a city, but they were very, you know, I feel like Bristol's quite still rural, and it had that, like, a sort of small, there, you know, where I was living, it felt like a much smaller sort of village, and where I grew up was, you know, there was a beach there, so it just felt a lot more like laid back. London is the law unto itself, so I felt I was quite amazed just by being in London and getting used to that onslaught of, well, you'll know, it's
just a big transition.
Yeah, it's intense. It's really intense. I still find it a very intense city. No, I didn't have a sit-down conversation with them and say, this is sort of what I want to do. And to be honest, I don't think many people do that.
Yeah.
Well, it's never been, for me, offered. I've had conversations with, you know, my now agent since about things that I would like to do, or more really it's stuff that you don't want to do.
Okay.
And I think that's an ongoing dialogue that maybe they get a flavour for when, you know, the phone rings.
Yeah.
And, oh, hi Jess, we've got a meeting for you, and kind of explain the role, and they explain what the job is. And instead of being like, oh, brilliant, oh my gosh, so exciting, you're a little bit more despondent and right, okay, all right, okay. Which is generally the sort of first indication that maybe that's not what you want to be doing. With age as well, I've kind of been less, sort of a bit scared to, you know, agent, I feel like comes with this kind of Ari Gold, you know, terrifying tag to it, that they feel maybe less approachable, and they were very approachable, definitely. You know, both agents have been, but kind of putting forwards what you want has taken me a much longer time to come around to. So yeah, I think really I left drama school, got an agent, and then they just started submitting me for things. And because I've been to Bristol,
theatre, or
because I've been to Bristol, it's quite like a classical training, which basically means lots of theatre. But it was mostly theatre to start off with. It was a real long time before I did any screen, even auditions.
Was that ultimately what you wanted to do, was transition to screen?
I sort of wanted to do it all, really. And I still kind of feel that way. I've still not done any radio, and that's still something I'd really like to do. But when I left, I was really like, I'd really like to explore every part, or every job that is a possibility for this career. I did more theatre, but I think that was maybe what my agent could get me at the time. I think it's much harder to get your foot in the door with, particularly like bigger film and TV productions. And then I think I got lucky a couple of times. I also did some really, really shit, sorry, can I swear?
Of course you can.
Really shit TV auditions. Like, I think back on them. You know when you put something you're searching something in your email?
Yeah.
And my old agent, like my first ever agent, her name popped up. And I just saw the the tagline for the email, and I was like, oh my god, I remember that audition. That was actual career suicide. Like, it was, I mean, bad because I'd never auditioned I'd never really had much. We had a little bit of screen training, like a little, I think there's much more now, but you know, back in the day we didn't really have much at all. So my performance was big. It was not the one. Oh, it's making me sweat just thinking about it. Actually, I feel a bit sad.
Do you still have those panics nowadays? Like, you get called in for an audition. Like, how long do you have to prepare for these things? Do you have to just feign this absolute confidence that you know what you're doing with this character, and that's that?
Yes. Yeah. The Oscar is like the Oscar-worthy performance is for the bit, you know, before you actually do the acting.
Yeah.
Just pretending that you're totally fine with everything. Yeah, there's lots of that. You don't get long is the general answer to that question.
Mm.
And rarely now.
Context, from what I've heard.
You what? Sorry.
Not much context to the character or the scene. You just kind of. You like.
You don't want to
speak of words, and you're like, right? How do I audition for something that I don't really understand?
Yeah. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you get lucky, but also sometimes you don't have time. You know, you might get the script through, and it's for the next day, and you literally don't have time. It's either I always learn the script first, and then, or I'll probably read the first sort of 10. I'm a very slow reader as well, so like 10-15 pages, just get into the like rhythm and the feeling of the production, whatever it is, just to sort of understand the way that it's written and the sort of what the writer's trying to convey, but also the sort of tone of the piece.
Yeah.
And then I'll learn the lines or read the scenes and then sort of try to learn the lines. And then once I feel like they're kind of 60-70% in, I'll go back and read a little bit more and try to get to the end. And then I tend to do the kind of test me before bed trick and go over it before I go to sleep, because I feel like that's quite a good way of like your brain processing it.
Yeah.
Magically you wake up and it's in your brain. So there isn't always the time either to kind of give it the love actually and the attention that you would as a creative want to. It feels a little bit rushed. But also you have, people complain a lot about self-tapes, about, you know, you rarely go into the room now. Yeah, we have like quite clever like pull-down systems now as well, where you have like a sort of a backdrop like you would do for a photographer's or something, which I've seen people, you know, when you're on location or something, and they take it with them, so they have this entire kit, this sort of roll of backdrop. Well, yeah, because then you can literally take it anywhere, and I mean I feel like I should make a reel of ridiculous places we've done self-tapes.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And so I think actually, like if you can just have a roll and then your tripod and your camera, and you just take that everywhere with you. But otherwise we've been in like hotels pinning up the sheets being like, well, that could be a sort of clear backdrop. Or
the ingenuity of actors.
For sure.
Real.
Don't tell anyone, but I kind of like it. Someone else had to sign something recently about like, stop self-tapes, and I was like, I quite like not going in because I get a bit nervous, and if I'm just doing it at home I can do it as many times as I want. And
you know what, that is true. It's not just on the spot so much.
There's something as well about going back to like the onslaught of London, that kind of overwhelming feeling of it. That you don't have to deal with going into London. You know, I feel like actually what gets me out of the right auditioning frame of mind is negotiating public transport and negotiating maybe, or
you're panicking about the actual getting there rather than what you should be doing.
And then I get there and I'm like, oh God, now I feel like I've just done the hard work getting here, and now I've got to generally climb about 3 flights of stairs, so you're really off as well. And they're like, Jessica, and you're like, yes, I'm feeling very relaxed and ready. So at least if you're in your own home, you can kind of, have a cup of tea and read it with your other half or your mate or whoever's, doing the tape with you, and there isn't that added pressure.
Do you tend to find it quite exciting, quite intriguing, or do you find the whole audition process quite just long?
I've really had to change my tune around auditions, because auditions generally come when you're out of work. I mean, some people are lucky enough to be auditioning while they're doing a job. I don't think I've ever had that.
It'll come.
Everyone's like, oh, are you auditioning for some fun thing? What's next? That question. Like, I'm working. Don't ask me that question. What do you mean what's next?
No, we live in the moment in this industry.
Yeah, let me just enjoy this, please. I'm working. Basking in working at the moment.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you're auditioning, you're out of work, which can feel like quite a disheartening time, and, you know, a time where you feel like you need to really pick yourself up, and so to get rejection when you're already feeling low can be crap.
I mean, that's touching on quite a large element, I find, to this industry, which is mental illness. Do you find that quite prevalent in your circles?
I find it's very prevalent in me. I'll be completely honest. I do think the industry can have a really negative impact on your mental health, for sure. Creatives in general are quite sensitive as people, and feel things very deeply, and I think it's what makes you a good performer or a great artist. But it also means that, you know, you feel things.
I read a paper or something the other week, and it said something like 75% of those in the creative industries will struggle with mental illness at some point. And you're just like, that's an astonishing number. But have you managed to find some tips and tricks that kind of help you through those periods?
Yeah, and I would say actually that's been the biggest sort of turning point for me as an actor, but also for, you know, as a human.
Yeah.
That, because I think that the industry, it can absolutely crush you. It can bulldoze the soul out of you. And I think it will if you're not careful, particularly if you don't sort of, you know, shoot to stardom or fame or whatever that means immediately. And because you will get knockbacks and you will get rejection. That is just the nature of that's what it's like. Yeah, tips and tricks. Number one, don't feel like you're a failure because you have another job. You have to support yourself first and foremost. You're no good to anybody if you can't pay the bills. That's all you're going to be thinking about. So you have to look after your sort of foundation. And that took me a really long time to realize. And I don't know whether it's because actually most people have second jobs, and I don't know whether it's people are pretending that they don't have to work. So it's almost like a duck, you know, like gliding on a surface, but like paddling like a duck underneath. And
but I think on that note, there's somehow become this tendency to kind of shit on people who do have these supporting jobs. Like, I cannot tell you the amount of times I've been in some kind of networking room or even in like a working production where people have made the joke and actors introduce themselves. They go, oh, I'm an actor. And the joke is, oh, what restaurant?
Oh, wow.
And you're like, it's not okay to say to somebody. And they just laugh it off. And you're like, no. People, I don't know, I get so angry at it because I think people are desperately trying to support themselves, support their dreams, support their ambitions, and people are just stabbing them in the heart.
I mean, that is very unfair to say. I'd imagine said by somebody who isn't in the industry or understands it at all.
Funnily enough, quite well known within the industry.
Okay. That's an arsehole, actually.
Yes.
And you get those as well, so, you know, in every walk of life. So yeah, I think the kind of like a pivotal moment mental health wise for me, I mean, I started, my mum had always taken me to yoga. She's always been quite into sort of like hatha yoga, and so I used to go with her when I was younger. And when I moved to London and I sort of was struggling with city life, there's a studio, I still live in the same flat, gad, and there's a studio around the corner. And I just walked past it one day and I decided to go in, and I started feeling better. The more I went, and it took me a really long time to, you know, to marry those two feelings together. And then I had, a million jobs. I basically have done every side job that you can think of. And I think what's difficult, actually, when I say like have a side job is what you need to support yourself generally. Sometimes you have a good year and you don't have to do that side job, but generally you'll have to do something else to support yourself, and that's okay. But I think the difficulty comes when you're trying to juggle both things. You're living in London so that you can go to the audition, so that you can do the job that you want to be doing, but you don't have the time or the space to prepare or be that actor because you're doing this other job so that you can support yourself to live in the city, to do the thing. I think that's the most difficult thing. And finding a job that doesn't make you want to throw yourself in front of a big red bus, because, you know, that was the really important lesson. And finding jobs where they pay you your worth, but you can also be like, I gotta go to an audition, and that they're okay with that. And I was very lucky to have one at a GP surgery that paid me extremely well, but I bless them, like they looked after me very, very well and let me go to auditions. But you know, I'd get called on my day off because there'd be paperwork that somebody needed, you know, answers for or whatever, and I hated it. Like I truly was miserable there, like a real low. Came also around a time where I didn't work for an entire year. I didn't audition. And I think those lowest moments spur you to kind of shuffle things up in hindsight. And so I didn't work, and it was horrendous. And I thought my career was like well and truly over. I was like, oh well, I've obviously, you know, had my time, had a good stab at it, and that's that. And so I decided to go and train as a yoga teacher.
Oh, amazing.
Something I'd wanted to do for ages. And that year I'd done a meditation course. So I'd learned to meditate, which just so happened to coincide at this really awful time. And I saw something on Instagram where a girl that I followed, a chef actually that I followed, posted something about how she'd been feeling, and it just really resonated with how I'd been feeling. And she said that she'd learnt this technique and it had sort of changed things for her. So I went and did that, and that led me to do this yoga teacher training. And I went off to India for just over a month to like fully immerse, do the course over there. And I really felt like I was going, and perhaps I'd never, act again. Thinking, well, maybe this is a new career, and maybe I've been doing the wrong thing for all this time, and I've just been pouring my blood, sweat and tears into something terrible. And actually what it did was make it focused why I want to be an actor, what I love about it, rather than all the fluff around it.
It grounded you.
So rather than the sort of the accolade and feeling like you'd achieved something, or that you were on that next rung and people were sort of looking at you differently, or all of that crap that comes with it, that self-worth that I was looking for in the job, that I was never going to get, because something outside of you isn't going to make you a fuller person. And it was in that moment that I started working more. Ironic.
You know what? It's just funny how these things work sometimes.
Yeah, but I think also I just sort of slightly more realigned why I wanted to do what I basically lost sight of why I wanted to be an actor. I'd entirely lost sight of it, and I got so caught up in where I thought I should be, and my mental health took a real turn there, and I think I'd found something that lit me up in the same way that acting did. And I still teach. I teach 4 days a week.
Oh, amazing.
And I think doing something that uses the same skill set, actually, essentially standing up in front of a room of people, sort of giving a performance to a certain extent, and you have a little bit more creative control over it because you get to plan a sequence and a playlist, and less so now, but you ordinarily get to go into a space and sort of create an atmosphere. People walk in feeling one thing and they leave feeling another thing, and they've got various things to think about along the way. And I was like, oh, this is the same job basically, but it's not about me, it's about somebody else. It's about being of service. And I think as soon as you switch that, and going back to what you were saying about auditioning, it then made me come back and be like excited about the possibility of auditions. So they now come in and I'm like, lovely, I get to sit down and read a script potentially, or at least read, you know, a couple of scenes written by another creative, and then I get to do some make-believe and you know,
have fun with it,
find this character, have fun with it. I think it can become so ploddy.
but I think this is why a lot of people, from just my outside perspective, why a lot of people struggle with it is because you go into acting as a game, right? As children, as at school, you go in, you have fun, you can express yourself, and it's all about enjoyment. And then you get into this like more technical stuff of how to be an actor, how method and all of that. And then you go out and suddenly it becomes a job. Suddenly you've got to think about things outside of the fun and the games and the playing around and the creativity. You've got to think about, how do I make money? How do I make a name? All of these things. And I think that complete transition affects a lot of people with like very slowly, because no one really kind of talks about it so much. So you became a yogi.
Yeah.
Did you have that kind of moment when you started kind of getting regular work where you were like, oh, this is a fabulous job?
Yeah, of course. Like it's the best when you're working. It's the best job in the world. It's amazing. There's a saying that I can't remember who said it, a famous actor, that the work is the being unemployed bit. That's the hard work. You do the acting bit for free.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing that and thinking, ain't that the truth? The hard work is the bolstering yourself and keeping active and keeping yourself sort of buoyant and ready, like match fit for what's to come. And that's the hard work. That's the hard bit. Because also you get out of practice. You know, you get an audition through and you've maybe not had one in 3 months, and you're like, oh, I can't remember how to do this. And you're like, I can't remember what all these people do.
So this is it. You've done your audition, you get the role, we're here, you celebrate, you turn up first day on set. What's that like? What's that process like? So like, for instance, on Pennyworth, I'm assuming that's quite a difference in terms of budget and chaos.
Yeah. Pennyworth was fucking terrifying. and also because it was only the pilot. We didn't know that the series had been greenlit.
Okay.
And when I auditioned for it, it was also self-tape. And it was honestly the quickest turnaround ever. I think my agent called me that morning at about 10 and said, hi Jess, yeah, we've got this role for you. It's just it was just before Christmas, so it was November, and I just finished a job and didn't think that I was going to work before Christmas, that classic no man's land, where I was like, well, I'm probably not going to work till spring. So I got this through, and he was like, you know, it's only one episode and it's only one scene really, but it's with the main character, and you know, it's middle November. So I was just like, yeah, go on then. He's like, yeah, it's got to be in by midday. Okay, today? Yeah, okay, yeah, sure. So sort of scratching around the house, you know, listening to the Queen's speech to sort of try and get my head around.
At least you've got lots of inspiration to pull your character from.
Well, not actually. There's not lots of, not of her young. There's hardly anything televised of her.
Only Claire Foy.
No, of just the young Queen. Oh, you mean Claire Foy. you did that, then you're doing an impression of an impression.
Yes.
You know, it's sort of like Chinese whispers.
Yeah.
I tried not to watch. I mean, obviously, I'd watched Crown by the time I'd got it, but anyway. So I, yes, got the role. Turned up to set, but I only thought it was going to be that one scene, that one episode. So it felt, and I think those are the hardest jobs where you're just a day player. You're not a series regular.
Right.
You don't know. You sort of don't have enough time to like get to know anybody or make friends, or so I sort of just rocked up and was put in this, you know, incredible costume and then shown into this incredible room. I'm trying to think where we filmed now. I feel like it was like Hatfield House or some big stately home.
Yeah.
And it was that, it's I don't know if you've seen it, but it's in this like big long hall basically, in this huge red carpet, and there's like a throne at the end of it and all these like oil paintings.
That was your first scene?
That was my first scene. That was my
like,
first scene.
I have arrived.
And I was just like, fucking hell, this is really intense. This is really intense. And also it felt quite like, obviously, you know, even writers are English and producer and stuff like that, but it just, there was just a sort of air of feeling a bit more American and a bit more, because you're because also I'd been to, you know, you'd been to the studios for fittings and stuff like that, so you feel like you're on this lot. And it was really terrifying, actually.
Did you have like a really favorite moment filming season 1? Was there just a moment where you're like, oh, this is epic?
The sort of end scene where there's been a huge explosion and Alfie sort of carries the limp body of the Queen. I also didn't know, by the way, if I was dead or not. Like, I had no idea if it was...
You had no idea?
Yeah, no idea. I just kept thinking, oh God, please don't have killed me off. It. Like, read the last line of the script was, Alfie carries the limp body of the Queen from the burning remains. And I was like, oh my God, they've killed me.
How do you film that, though? You're like, I'm just going to be dead?
Yeah.
Like, you just have to try and not breathe?
Yeah. Bless Jack as well, like carrying me. Because I just, you know, normally when someone's carrying you, sort of, you're holding on a little bit, or taking some of your own body weight. They were like, yeah, just more like limp, like you're literally falling out of his grip. And he was like this. He was like, sorry, Jess, you're not that heavy. And I sort of got a really sore neck, actually, because you sort of have you have to like completely go, just let all the chins arrive. That was quite cool, the ending of that. And
then you finally get the phone call saying you're back, and you're like, oh my God, thank God.
Yeah, I mean, you sort of always hope and pray, but and then obviously we went into lockdown, and then stuff, you know, really shifted and changed because of COVID. And
did you end up filming with like the new COVID regulations and stuff?
Yeah, we went back and filmed the end of it. I think it really, well, because we don't read the scripts, I've no idea how it changed things. I did sort of have a very brief chat with our producer, who was like, you know, we've had to curtail lots of storylines, and, you know, stuff hasn't gone the way that we wanted to. So just in case you thought, you know, we were writing you out or anything. So there's definitely been, I think, some shifts in. But you wouldn't know it. Like, you wouldn't, to watch any of it back, or they've done an incredible job.
You had to quarantine and then bubble, or did you have to do the whole 2 meters apart? Yeah,
so you had to quarantine for 3 days before you went back on set, so on your own, or they'd put you in a hotel. And you'd have 2 COVID tests, one on the first day and one 24 hours before you went in, and if they both came back negative, you'd go on set. This is just for their insurance, like quarantine rules. I know that other productions do it differently. and then you have a mask on the entire time. So you have like hair and makeup, and then you put a mask on over the top. You're like, I'm so sorry. Put a mask on over the top. And then in between, so rehearsal, you'd rehearse with a mask. That was weird. That was really weird. And then when you shoot, somebody would be responsible for when they'd call cut. You know, one of the runners would rush in and have like a little sort of utility bag with all of the jiffy bags that your mask would go into. So you'd have a personally labeled little jiffy bag, and we had like protocols for taking off masks, so you could only use the string and the thing and put it in and then zip it up, and then hand sanitizer before, sorry, I missed that stage, and then hand sanitizer afterwards.
And you, I guess the new ways of things change the atmosphere of filming, or was it quite similar, just hidden under a mask?
I think people got used to it. I think, you know, I would definitely say from COVID and all the lockdowns that it's made me realize like how resilient and adaptable we are. Just as a human race. I think we've all got very used to just doing things differently all of a sudden.
I think it's amazing. I think people have realized that they don't just have to stick to one thing.
Yeah, so I think people got used to it. It was definitely odd at the start, and yeah, it definitely changed the atmosphere because you're having to keep a distance, and also the sort of actors are kept together and the crew is sort of kept together. So there isn't that like camaraderie and that community kind of feel of, you know, they shout cut and, you know, you maybe stay on set because they're just swinging a lens or something. It's not some big team and they're bringing in, you know, the second team. So, you know, you'd maybe speak to camera operator or you know,
just made it a little bit more formal this time around.
It just means that you're sort of ushered off into your own. You're just sort of very much kept within the actors, which, going back to what you were saying at the start of this conversation, means that you're even more insular within your working group, so that, you know, all the sparks will probably be kept together and all of sound will be all kept together, and or, you know, maybe some crossover in crew, but then makeup are all together, and so there's less of that. And I find sort of fascinating being on set, and maybe it's more from, you know, from starting to make my own stuff as well. I sort of just want to know what's going on. I'm like, oh, what's that? Why are you filming?
What? It is the best bit, personally, I think, about being on set, just chatting to everyone and going, what are you doing?
Yeah, because I'm sort of fascinated by other, you know, their roles. And how it all comes together, and, you know, things like sound, things like lighting, where I just don't have a clue.
I know.
I'm like, what's happening?
I still think they're somewhat magicians, because
they are actual wizards, sorcerers. Not a clue what they're doing. Not a clue.
Do you think you've got any kind of other little tidbits or advice that you think someone following in your footsteps might need to know, down to even like highlighting scripts in a certain way as they come in, or like little process details that they don't necessarily teach you but have been crucial to your process?
I mean, I would say find, like, this isn't a get out of jail free card, like find your own process, because everybody's is so different. And what works for you might not work for somebody else. I mean, I'm married to an actor, and the way that we prepare is polar opposite. Really? And when we first got together, and when we first lived together, actually, because I feel like that's when you really see the inner working of the other person. I was just like, God, maybe I'm doing it all wrong. Maybe this isn't, my process is all wrong. And I started sort of trying out his process. Not for me. Not.
How do they compare?
I really take my time, or I like to, if I have the time, as we talked about earlier. If I have the time, I pore over the script and write out every little detail. I'll do like a character study, you know, where I'll sit down and I'll go through the whole script and write down the like what she says about herself, what she says about other people, what other people say about her, and sort of
actioning.
I sometimes do actioning. I think I do actioning more in my head. Very rarely, I mean, I'm just looking at my bookshelf now as we speak. Very rarely do I get the like action book out and write stuff. If I'm struggling to prep something and I just think like, oh, I don't know what this is. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where she's coming from. What's my motivation? Then I might get the action book out but yeah, I do stuff like that. I spend a really long time on dialect. I love accents. So I have an amazing dialect coach. So if it's, I often get lots of accent work through as well, I think because of that. I love walking around with it, go for a run, chatting away to myself, lunatic. Sometimes I'll go to the supermarket, not my local supermarket, because they all know me in there and they'd be like, she has finely cracked, like random supermarket that I would never normally shop in, but is within walking distance, and I might just chat to them in the accent I'm trying to do and see if I get away with it. To be honest, everyone's probably just nailed it. So sometimes I do that. I just love a prep. I want to do all of the prep possible. I'd like about 2 weeks to like just really get into character.
Yeah. You're fit to train.
Yeah, Nick is like the opposite. That's my husband. He's got like a photographic memory, so he looks at the lines and they're in.
Oh,
drives me insane. And he's much more and this is just the difference between us as humans, I think, as well. He's much more like cerebral. He'll sort of like work it out more in his head and figure it out from that way. And I basically want to like, do an interpretive dance. And he's up there and I'm down here. In a nutshell. So yeah, I think find the method that works for you. Be kind to yourself. I think that is what I would impart to somebody starting out. Be kind to yourself. Find something that looks after your mental health, whatever that is for you. Whether it's, making sure that you get out in nature once a day, or you learn some breathing techniques, or you learn to meditate, or you do some yoga or Tai Chi or whatever it is. Move your body. Body equals endorphins. Endorphins. It's free, take it.
What's that Legally Blonde quote? Endorphins make you happy, and happy people just don't kill their husbands.
I love it. Yes. I would say that's my biggest advice. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to look like you don't know what you're doing. I remember a drama teacher saying that to me before I left drama school. He was like, you're only young and inexperienced once, so use it to your advantage. If you don't know what something means, ask. And that was really useful. Don't feel like you're worthy, even if you're not working, or even if you don't understand or know something. And then I would say do a couple of things a day that are related in some way to the industry, even if it's like read a couple of pages of a play, or I don't know, sing a song, just whatever it might be, just to keep your toe just to keep dipping your toe in, because otherwise 6 months can go by and you can feel like you're not maybe an actor, you feel like you're whatever your other job is, a receptionist or a waiter or a PT or a children's entertainer. You feel like that's your job. So I think it's just do a little something every day that is related to acting, being an actor.
I think that is wonderful advice. People will take that well and truly on board.
Yeah, well, I hope so. Hope it's useful.
No, 100%. And thank you so much. You've been an absolute star.
Oh, you're absolutely welcome. Thanks for having me. It's been a treat. I feel like I've just had a catch up with an old pal for an afternoon.
No, that's the aim we go for. I don't tend to do formal. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Good Bad Mad podcast. Please subscribe to check out the next episode, or leave a review if you liked it. You can find us on Instagram at goodbadmad or at goodbadmad.com for additional resources and information. See you next time!